Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today I just kind of want to talk about the state of Diablo 4 and kind of why I'm not going to be playing it anymore and my gripes about it, and kind of just wanted to speak my mind on it. Now, this is unscripted, which means it's going to be kind of word soup and off the cuff, but I'm going to just kind of try to vent my frustrations that I'm having with Diablo 4, and hopefully it comes across clear enough that you kind of understand where I'm coming from. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on it. So, what I noticed is Diablo 4 is is heading in a backwards direction to comparison of Diablo 3, in the sense that their endgame mechanics are not well tuned or improved. They keep making their systems and their game simpler and simpler, targeting a casual and more casual audience. They're doing this because the casual audience is the people that are going to pay them the most money, and it's going to be the largest majority audience, right? So, at a monetary level, it makes plenty of sense that Blizzard would do this. And because Blizzard is a AAA studio, they are going to focus more on making money than they are on making the game the best that it could be. So something I noticed about Diablo 4 is it's a good game in disguise, and they did this on purpose so that they would get positive press on the release, and then they would, slowly receive negative press as people continued playing the game. On paper and at the start of the game, it's amazing. The story is great. There's a lot of content early on. The side questing, the multitude of different dungeons. Even though once you start playing enough, you start to realize that most of the dungeons are just copy and pasted and then placed in a different location on the map. And you kind of get this visual of, hey, a lot of this is just filler for the casual audience to basically distract them for the first week of release so that we can get positive press. So now it's coming out that, we're getting to the point where people are getting their characters up to like level 70 to 80 to 90, even maxing out characters. People are realizing that nightmare dungeons are just rifts in disguise. They really are just the exact same thing, except there's a different goal, but it follows the same formula. Run a dungeon, it has a tier difficulty, get loot based on the tier, and increase difficulty based on the tier. It's the same thing as rifts. Put in a rift and it's more difficult and you get more loot based on the tier. They do this on purpose, and they just make you work harder for it. They just say, okay, well, now you have to spend 5 minutes traveling to the dungeon before you can actually do the dungeon. And that's supposed to be some kind of like immersion or game design that's supposed to have a positive aspect. Instead of me being able to continuously grind my loot and grind up my character, I have to now waste time traveling through the world? Okay, great. Something else I noticed is people are exploiting certain dungeons. They're realizing certain dungeons have higher packs, the highest pack size and the highest like elite pack size, so that they can rush it over and over and over again. Repeat. Because they don't have any kind of endgame substance that allows your character to scale XP wise in a good fashion. Basically, they've introduced ways to level your character to about level 50, and then the only real way that you're going to be able to grind your character to level 100 is by just killing mobs. There's no actual extra content that's added to the game that gives you scalability and XP. Even down to the Tree of Whispers. The Tree of Whispers starts having degrading XP margins compared to just killing packs of enemies. And that's because World Tier 4 is designed for characters level 70 or higher. The issue is there's no torment difficulty, which means that scaling overall has to happen based on character level, and therefore your character needs to increase in power at an exact rate of monsters increasing in power, and if you don't, your character build is going to fall off. That forces you to play a certain way, which means you have to play nightmare dungeons at some point probably at a lower tier than your level, so that you can level up your glyphs, because that's the only way that you can scale past your character level, because items don't really do anything after a certain point in this game. If you've noticed, in Diablo 3, they had legendary gear, primal, ancient legendary gear, and primal ancient legendary gear. They also had set pieces. This was a way for you to mix and match character builds and, you know, expand character playability, at least to a degree, and variety. Set items, even though people complained about them, were actually very good for the game, because it gave you a way to scale a skill without fitting many different criteria, because now all we have is legendary and unique modifiers. With legendary modifiers, you have to fit certain criteria to make them work. You either have to be immobilizing enemies, you have to be critting all the time, you have to have frozen an enemy, you have to have an enemy be burning, an enemy needs to be poisoned, you know, like, if this then that is the entire thing with ancient modifiers, or legendary modifiers. And the problem with that is there's a ceiling to how much you can scale, because of the way the abilities work in the passive tree. Now, you'll probably have noticed this yourself, that certain skills don't scale as good as other skills. For instance, in Sorcerer, Ice Shards is the best scaling skill. Why? Because the ancient legendaries are all based around controlled impairing effects, which goes very great hand on hand with freeze, because it is a control impairing effect. The lightning and burning have no control impairing effects for the most part. I think lightning has a little bit of stun, but really not like enough to warrant it. And then I think meteor is the only stunning effect in fire tree. So you're really forced into damage over time with burning, and you know, the damage over time really doesn't scale appropriately with how much burning damage you can actually do, compared to the burst damage that you can do with ice shards, and compared to the burst damage you can do with lightning. And lightning is even worse than cold damage, and that has to do with the fact that if you go and look at all the ancient, or sorry, the legendary modifiers for Sorcerer, you'll notice that ice-based skills have a lot more support overall than any other skill in the Sorcerer package. And that's really upsetting. It doesn't feel multifaceted at all. It feels like you're shoehorned into doing ice as your core skill, and then you can splash into a few fire skills for specific aspects and abuse of passives. And then if you don't want to do ice shards, you're doing lightning. And lightning is just guaranteed to be worse than ice, no matter what, because of the way scaling works in the game. The reason that they're doing scaling this way is so that they can control damage numbers and control balance. And the issue with that is you'll never feel like you're a god at the game. Your character will never feel godly unless you're abusing or exploiting something. And I think the only characters that can really exploit to the point of pushing past 200k damage, min-maxed. I'm telling you, like, you have to be min-maxed to be dealing like 200k DPS. Unless you're like Thorn's Barbarian, or Hoda Barbarian, Hammer of the Ages Barbarian, or like there's like a few very specific niche cases with Druid that are also just exploiting a specific mechanic with scaling, which is either bound to be nerfed, or everyone's going to be forced into that because that's the only build that scales past a certain limit and allows you to overpower your enemies instead of staying on par with your enemies throughout the whole game. And I find that to be an issue, because it means you can never get to the point where you're just tearing through tier dungeons. I feel like level 100 characters like are struggling, hardcore struggling to do the hardest difficulty dungeons, and there's no scaling available in the game that allows you to actually do the hardest difficulty pieces of the game. So for those reasons, Diablo 4 feels really shoehorned into this like casual, simplistic gamer idea and then it adds a few extra endgame stuff to keep the Diablo 4 crackheads, if you will, interested. And then you get to a point where, you know, you've min-maxed your character. You realize, oh, I can't do the endgame content, but I have literally perfect gear. I can't make it any better. I just have to level up my sigil over and over and over and over and over again for very small incremental increases. It's going to take you so long, and it's going to be so mindless and boring that you're going to quit or get bored, because it is a gameplay loop. The issue with their gameplay loop, it is so repetitive. It is so unbelievably repetitive, and they did not learn from Diablo 3. Dungeons are just rifts in disguise. Nightmare dungeons are just rifts in disguise. They are just empowered rifts in disguise. There's literally no difference. Sigil upgrades is just the same as jewelry gem upgrades. They're just... It's literally like they didn't learn about what made Diablo 3 a poorly designed game, and they just took their Diablo 3 mechanics and put them into Diablo 4, and then put open world on top of it. Which, in my personal opinion, the open world aspect made the game worse for the end game. And even though it is better for team-oriented gameplay, it is way worse for... and it's better for the casual gamers too, but it is way worse for endgame players who are trying to grind their best in select gear. You waste so much time traveling to your nightmare dungeons if you do that. It's outrageous. So that's my gripe on the endgame mechanics. It just feels like your character doesn't scale properly, difficulty doesn't make sense, it just doesn't... There's not enough items in the game for variety, so you're shoehorned into one specific build that has the proper scaling. All other builds don't scale correctly. Yeah, it's a mess. It just feels like a mess to me. Something else I wanted to point out, and this made me laugh so hard when I figured this out, man. I was working on 100%ing the map, and then I realized something. There are hidden side quests in the game. Okay, there are hidden side quests in the game that are nearly impossible to find. And there's no quest journal, which means you have no idea if you've done a quest or not. So, how am I supposed to 100% a map when I don't know what quests I've done before, and I can't find new quests on the map? It makes no sense. You just can't 100% the map because finding those you would have had to at the beginning tracked all of your quests, and if you didn't, then you have to start over. It doesn't make any sense to me why there's no quest log or quest journal in the game, because you literally can't keep track. In that way, you have no idea what unknown quest you haven't completed yet, because you could have picked up like an on drop only quest and been like, okay, here's a side quest, and then you go and you do the side quest, and then you forget about it, and then you realize, oh, I have 3 side quests I haven't done. I wonder which ones I haven't done. I don't know, because I didn't record the 300 side quests I've done already. Ah, what a shame, you know? So, yeah, I'm gated by poor game design to actually full complete the map, and that is just unbelievable. So those are my major gripes. Also, spoiler alert. Spoiler, look out. Skip, you know, this is a spoiler, but Donan dying in the campaign was one of the most laughable lore moments in Diablo history, in my personal opinion. Oh man, what a way to kill off a character, man. It just didn't make any sense. I was blown away by it. Literally, the guy walks up to a wall and dies. I was like, wow. And super epic. This epic warrior of a character. It's like got like war history and is like a crazy Horadrim. Just gets offed by a single wall. Crazy to me, dude. Absolutely crazy to me. I just couldn't believe it, man. So those are some gripes I have with Diablo 4. And these are the reasons I got to like level 76, I think, and then I stopped because I saw ahead of just the senseless grinding for no reason I was about to endure. So yeah, it just didn't feel, I just knew I was not going to have any more fun. So that's kind of my gripes on it, man. Also, they say that there's trading available in the game, like you can do player-to-player trading. Yes, this is kind of true, but there's no platform or auction house for you to trade for, so it really only works when you're trading for friends or real money trading, and at that point, like, yeah, it's just pointless. So trading is basically non-existent in the game, unless you're trying to give your friend a rare that you picked up, which, like, yeah, great. I will say something that Diablo 4 did do better than Diablo 3 is integration for party play. The party play makes a lot of sense, it feels good, but of course, you know, it doesn't make up for the fact that their end game is trash. Their end game is a trash fire. Man, like I said, this ARPG is near perfect. It is near perfect, but their end game is abysmal. But okay, so with all this being said, I know I just trashed on the game big time. My rating for the game overall has gone from like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10 to like a 4 out of 10 after I started to recognize some of the bad patterns that they had put up. So with all that being said, I do think that Blizzard can redeem their end game. They have things in place to where all they need to do is fill the gaps with substance so that it doesn't feel so tedious and horrible, which means they have to fix scaling, they have to introduce more items into the game, or they have to introduce a different type of scaling, because at the current moment, glyph scaling is the only way you can scale your character past base level, and your character's gear just feels unimpactful to a certain degree. Something else I noticed is you cannot really prioritize defenses and damage at the same time in your gear and still have a build that functions, which means we're going to get to that point, the same point that happened in Diablo 3, where everyone just dumps everything they can into damage, get the damage number as high as humanly possible so that you kill things before they even get close to you, and then you have a last breath mechanic to save you in the case that you do take damage. For instance, Flame Shield on Sorcerer. Flame Shield's enchantment that saves you with last breath every 120 seconds. You do that, you prioritize damage, you put nothing into defenses except for 3 skull gems in your jewelry, and that's it. Like, and then you just go off of base armor. And then you scale intelligence so that you can get elemental resistances and damage, but you have no room for any kind of damage over time mitigation, any kind of poison resistance, shadow resistance. Like, you just die to that stuff, or you have last breath mechanic. That's just how it is. So yeah, and the unique items being, first of all, you can't roll mods on them, so they're unmodifiable, which is a kind of a joke. And then also, the unique modifiers on the unique items aren't even that special. It just kind of, yeah, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, man. The scaling just feels bad. Yeah, and also their skins and their MTX prices are terrifying. They're more expensive than Path of Exile's MTXs, and those things are expensive. Diablo 4 is, I mean, I get they took a page out of Path of Exile's book, but Path of Exile didn't cost $70 to start. Yes, you have to buy stash tabs in Path of Exile, but you can get enough stash tabs to play the game for like $20 to $30. And then, you know, you don't have to buy MTXs. I don't know, man. It just blows me away. It's just so expensive. They also said they were introducing a battle pass. I have yet to see a battle pass actually be released yet. It's hilarious to me that on launch, we're promised in the deluxe edition a battle pass, and we don't have one. So yeah, a lot of things that I just don't agree with, man. Another game where Blizzard, on paper, made it look fantastic and then ruined it somehow. But yeah, if you are a casual player, man, Diablo is gonna feel great. But you're gonna get to a point, maybe about after a week of playing the game, where people are just gonna quit. And because it becomes boring, mindless, people have completed the story, they're less invested, They don't want to start a new character because of how long it takes. Character scaling just becomes so tedious. And yeah, that's about all I wanted to vent, guys. This rant has gone on long enough, I think. So yeah, if you agree with me, you know, cool. If you don't, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you like this rant and want to see Path of Exile content, because that's what I'm doing, at least for the time being. Although I'm running out of stuff to do in Path of Exile as well. But that's just because I play this game full time, man. I need to find something new, a new project to do on Path of Exile. The problem is the player base is dying out, so it's making it very difficult to do things. So yeah, that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next one, and take care. All right, see you later.